Hi, Michael from Doing Life Together. So good to be with you again this week from this beautiful location just south of Sydney. Over the last few weeks, we've been looking at some foundational principles that underpin all the work that we do with children, families, schools, communities, organisations alike. Some building blocks, if you will. We looked at this idea of how do you and I see other human beings? Do we look through broken windows and see brokenness straight away? Or do we look through eyes of compassion and see worth and value from the outset? We looked at this idea that you and I as human beings, we like to compare the pair, so to speak, to measure ourselves, to benchmark ourselves against the other person, the other organisation, the other school, the other family, the other community. We looked at how this is taxing and tiring and a destructive pattern for human beings. And we posed the question, what would it look like if we were to bow in humility to all? Well, this week, I want to take a quick look at the idea, the concept of story. Story is an essential part of the human experience. In fact, it's uniquely human. Stories have the power to connect us to one another, to draw us closer together. Stories also have the power to push us away, to separate us, to move us in the opposite direction. Stories have the power to create understanding, respect, humility, but they also have the power to create hate and fear and division. So what do we mean by this idea of story? Well, your story, my story, is the unique collection of experiences, moments and memories that make you you, that make me me, that make a community, a school, an organisation, a family. Those stories then come together to form collective stories, if you will. Sometimes you and I add to our own stories, sometimes other people add to our stories. Sometimes we choose things to be part of our stories through things we do or learn or don't do, but sometimes things are thrust upon us or just happen in our story without being in our control. So many things shape and build our stories. In fact, for all of us, our story started with our own parents long before we were born. It's well known the power of generational stories and the impact that they have on the present generation and those to come. In fact, the first few years of life are pivotal to laying the foundations for your lifelong story. They lay the foundations of how you connect, problem solve, make friends, talk to other people, your capacity to learn, to regulate. The beginning paragraph, if you will, sets the trajectory for the rest of the story and what's to come. That's why it's so important, so critical that we do all we can to invest in the story and development of children, particularly young children and their families. But our stories are so much more than this. They're our gifts, our talents, our abilities, what we bring to the table, our capacity, our dislikes, our likes, our personality, and importantly, our dreams, our visions, our aspirations. Human beings thrive when we have a dream to work towards, to look towards, not just for ourselves, but for the greater good. We need to have hope to keep moving forward. So why am I telling you about stories? Why are we spending time on this concept? Because see, when we listen to stories, when we sit in stories, when we hear stories, it needs to change the way we work. When we're in a classroom and we're working with a child who's displaying some challenging behaviours or talking back to us or having trouble or difficulty regulating their emotion, what's happening in their story, what's going on in their life, what has happened is critical to understanding then how do we build appropriate supports to help them move forward. Same with the community. If we want to help or work or journey with a community to help them find new ways of doing things, we need to understand the story, the identity, the experience before we can speak into that narrative. Same with organisation, within a team. Story is pivotal to understanding where we've come from, where we are, and where we're going. So this week, grab yourself a piece of paper and draw yourself what I like to call a story map. That is, put it in the beginning, put it in the now, put in the next few years, next few months. And whether it be yourself, whether it be a team that you're part of, your classroom, your school, your family, draw out your story, so to speak. Look at the things that have influenced your story, shaped your story, things that have led you to certain decisions, certain actions. And look for, where do you think your story is going now? Not only that, when you sit down with families this week, with one another, before you make a statement, before you make a judgment, before you even make a decision, ask the question, what's happening, what's journeying, what's going on in this person's story? Hope you have a great week, and we look forward to connecting with you again real soon.